Leviticus chapter 14. Now the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, This shall be the law of the leper for the day of his cleansing. He shall be brought to the priest. The priest shall go out of the camp, and the priest shall examine him. And indeed, if the leprous infection is healed in the leper, the priest shall give orders to take, for the one declared clean, 2 small birds, live and clean, and also cedar wood, and scarlet and hyssop. Then the priest must give orders that one of the birds be killed in an earthen vessel over running water. As for the living bird, he shall take it, the cedar wood, the scarlet and hyssop, and dip them and the living bird in the blood of the bird killed over the running water. Then he shall sprinkle the water 7 times on the one cleansed from his leprosy, and he shall be clean. Then he shall send away the living bird into a field. And the one who was cleansed shall wash his clothes, shave off all his hair, and wash himself in water, and he shall be clean. After this he shall come into the camp, and shall stay outside his tent 7 days. But on the 7th day he shall shave all the hair from his head, his beard, and his eyebrows. All his hair he shall shave off. He shall wash his clothes and wash his body in water, and he shall be clean. Then on the 8th day he shall take 2 one-year lambs without blemish, a 1-year-old sheep without blemish, 3/10 of the finest wheaten flour for a grain offering mixed with oil, and also 1 cup of oil. Then together with these things, the priest who cleanses shall present before the Lord at the door of the tabernacle of testimony the man to be made cleansed. The priest shall then take 1 lamb and offer it as a trespass offering, and the cup of oil, and set them apart as a wave offering before the Lord. Then he shall kill the lamb in the place where he kills the sin offering and the whole burnt offering, in a holy place. For as the sin offering is the priest's, so is the trespass offering. It is most holy. The priest shall take some of the blood of the trespass offering and put it on the tip of the right ear of the one hand to be cleansed, on the tip of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. The priest shall also take some of the oil from the cup and pour it into the palm of his own left hand. Then he shall dip his right finger in the oil in his left hand, and sprinkle some of it with his finger 7 times before the Lord. The priest shall then put some of the remaining oil on the tip of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, and also on the thumb of his right hand, the big toe of his right foot, and on the blood of the trespass offering. Then the priest shall put the rest of the oil on the head of the one to be cleansed. Thus the priest shall make atonement for him before the Lord. Afterward the priest shall offer the sin offering, and by it make atonement for the one to be cleansed. Then he shall kill the whole burnt offering. The priest shall offer the whole burnt offering and the grain offering on the altar before the Lord. Thus the priest shall make atonement for him, and he shall be clean. But if he is poor and cannot afford it, he shall take 1 lamb as a choice portion for a trespass offering, along with 1/10 of fine flour mixed with oil, and a cup of oil as a grain offering, and 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, such as he is able to afford. One shall be a sin offering, and the other a burnt offering, to make atonement for him. He shall bring them to the priest on the 8th day for his cleansing, to the door of the tabernacle of testimony before the Lord. The priest shall take the lamb of the trespass offering and the cup of oil, and put them as a deposit before the Lord. Then the priest shall kill the lamb of the trespass offering, and take some of its blood, and put it on the tip of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, then on the thumb of his right hand, and the big toe of his right foot. The priest shall then pour some of the oil into the palm of his own left hand, and sprinkle with his right finger some of the oil in his left hand, 7 times before the Lord. Then the priest shall put some of the oil in his hand on the tip of the right ear of the one to be cleansed, and also on the thumb of his right hand and the big toe of his right foot, on the place of the blood of the trespass offering. The rest of the oil in the priest's hand he shall put on the head of the one to be cleansed, to make atonement for him before the Lord. After this he shall offer one of the turtle doves or young pigeons, such as he can afford, one as a sin offering and the other as a whole burnt offering, with the grain offering. Thus the priest shall make atonement for the one to be cleansed before the Lord. This is the law for one who has a leprous infection, who cannot afford the usual cleansing. Now the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, When you enter the land of Canaan, which I give you as a possession, and I put the leprous infection in a house in the land of your possession, and he who owns the house comes and tells the priest, saying, It seems to me there is an infection in my house, then before the priest goes into the house to examine the infection, he shall give orders for them to empty the house, that everything in the house may not become unclean. Afterward, the priest shall enter the house to examine it. He shall examine the infection, and indeed, if the plague on the walls of the house has greenish or reddish depressions that appear to be deep in the walls, then the priest shall go outside the house to the door of the house and quarantine the house 7 days. After this, the priest shall come again on the 7th day to examine it. And indeed, if the infection is spread on the walls of the house, then the priest shall give orders to take away the stones with the infection, and they shall cast them into an unclean place outside the city. They shall then scrape the house inside and outside, and the dust they scrape off they shall pour out in an unclean place outside the city. Then they shall take other scraped stones and put them in the place of those stones, and they shall take other mortar and plaster the house. Now, if the infection comes back and breaks out in the house after they took away the stones and scraped and plastered the house, then the priest shall enter the house to examine it. And indeed, if the infection is spread in it, there is an act of leprosy in the house. It is unclean. So they shall break down the house, its stones, timber, and all its plaster, and carry them outside the city to an unclean place. Moreover, he who goes into the house at all while it is quarantined shall be unclean until evening. Also the one who lies down in the house shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. And the one who eats in the house shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. But if the priest enters the house to examine it, and indeed the infection is not spread at all in the house after it was plastered, then the priest shall pronounce it clean, because the infection is healed. Then, to cleanse the house, he shall take 2 live birds, cedar wood, scarlet, and hyssop, and he shall kill one of the birds in an earthen vessel over running water. And he shall take the cedar wood, the hyssop, the scarlet, and the living bird, and dip them in the blood of the slain bird and in the running water, and sprinkle the house 7 times. Thus he shall cleanse the house with the blood of the bird, the running water, and the living bird, along with the cedar wood, the hyssop, and the spun scarlet. Then he shall send away the living bird into a field outside the city, and make atonement for the house, and it shall be clean. This is the law for any leprous infection and lesion. And for a leprous garment, a house, a scar, a mark, and a bright spot, to determine in which day there is the unclean, and in which day it will be declared clean. This is the law of leprosy.